Hey there, gang. Today we are in a very small town in Texas called Norman G. If you go back about 30 years ago, just over 30 years, we're going to go back to August 23rd, 1994. This bank here, you see, the Norman G State Bank, was robbed. There were 8 bank robbers who came from North Houston. They were punks, teenage kids. I think they were mostly in high school. And they came with nylon caps, shotguns, and guns, and they stormed this bank back then. Stole about $170,000 cash and then lit out of town. They headed south, southeast, and they went to the cemetery. Why'd they go to the cemetery? Well, they had a car staged there. I think they wanted to switch cars or add cars, but in any respect, there was an elderly woman there. She was 81 years old. Her name, Ruby Parker. Ruby was at her husband's grave. She was tending to his grave, and also a huge family plot, mostly for her family. Her sons are buried there now. 30 years have passed. And we're going to go to the cemetery, and these guys hustled down there while police, everything was going crazy. They hustled down there, went into the cemetery, and some really bad stuff happened. So we're going to go to the cemetery where it's a little more quiet, and I'll tell you the rest of the story here from Norman G. All right, we are at the Hopewell Cemetery, just 2 miles out of town. Beautiful little place here. Yeah, so I want you to just imagine that Ruby's here by herself in her car, and she is she's either tending to the grave of her family, which is over there. Her maiden name Bottoms, and her family plot, you can see my truck there, is right on the corner. So she was either there where my truck is parked, tending to her relatives, her descendants, or she was over there, which is where her husband's buried, Marvin. Now, Marvin died in his early 40s. He died way back in 1952. So imagine the dedication. Coming back. There's a good chance she was at Marvin's grave. And let's walk up to the Parker, her married name, Parker family plot, which is right up here. Now you see the entrance to the cemetery. You just have to try to imagine that, gosh, you're here tending to your family plot, which is right over here. Right front and center. I'm guessing she was probably right here. You look over to the front here, and that's the direction you come in, from right over there. And you could just imagine she is here, and this is her husband's marker right here. Of course, she's right there, because on that day, on that fateful day of August 23rd, 1994, she must have been standing right here, and right where the camera is pointed, the rumbling of a speeding car coming from beyond those bushes. And again, I'm just imagining that right here, screeching to a stop, spinning around the corner, and coming right up here. And she's like standing where I'm standing, and she's probably like, as the car's coming, and she's either in her car or going to her car, because they said that they came in, these robbers, these 8 guys, and they had supposedly a car staged here. Who knows where it was here in the cemetery? It could have been right over here. Well, it could have been anywhere. And they come up, and she had apparently gotten to her car or was in her car, which, if she was here in the front and the center, then she would have been like right here in her car. Now here's a bench. It says Lee and Ruby. So Marvin Lee, is that Marvin? That does look like Ruby. The picture is a very poor, whited out picture of Ruby from the newspaper I found. So this is really sad, but I just want you to imagine that she's sitting in the driver's side, car's pointed that way, and these guys come up where I'm standing, and they're like, we want your car. They want to carjack her car. They, of course they want to change cars, because at the bank they got a description of the cars. And they're yanking on the door, and she's like, no. So what do? They shoot her right through the window and killed her. Well, she probably wasn't dead. It's not like the movies, guys, but unless she was shot in the head. But from what I understand, they pulled her body out, and then they ran her over. They ran her over. That's right. Poor Ruby, 81 years old. Loved by all here. Loved by everyone here in Norman G. So I see a lot of family. Now these guys took off, obviously that direction right there, and there was a roadblock set up about 3 miles west, and they blasted right through it. And as they did, one of the gunmen leaned out, one of those thugs, and he shot Trooper Stefan Byun in the shoulder. Not sure of the pronunciation, Bynuin. He recovered. Now they caught these guys. I think there were 12 total in the gang, 8 here. 2 suspects were caught in Robertson County and 2 in Madison. One was out on bond on a sexual assault charge, and another was out on bond for auto theft. The third one, he was out on parole for drugs. So little, excuse my language, little shitheads. I don't swear ever on this channel, really. But in this case, I have to apologize. It's just little monsters. Wonder where they are now. So let's take a look at the graves. We have Doris Elaine Owen. We have a picture. She passed in 2002, pretty young. I see a U.S. Army who passed in 1921, Bobby Paul Parker. Looks like Corporal. Mary Alice is still alive. Harold Lee. Now, Harold Lee is one of the sons, passed in 2019. And I believe the other son is Bobby Paul. Passed also in 2021. Now this says mother of Becky and Bobby Paul, Lena or Lena. She passed in 2014. So here are the graves of Marvin Lee and Ruby Elizabeth. Reunited now, reunited since '94. I mean, Marvin died 1952. And a long time. Ruby was 81. Beautiful stones here. There were some memories written on Ruby. She was remembered by the people here as a wonderful nurse. She was, of course, a retired nurse. She was also remembered as a wonderful friend, a special mother and grandmother. And she was just plain a wonderful person in this town. She was loved by all. There's a pastor, Jerry House, of the First United Methodist Church here in Normandy. He said Ruby worked in the church hospice program. She was a regular fixture on the back row in the church. He said that Ruby helped others right up until her death. He said on Tuesday morning she drove someone out without a car. She drove them to Madisonville and back, a 60-mile round trip. He went on to say, I went to her house yesterday and there were 3 pots of grapes on the stove. She was making grape jelly for her kids. They said here in town that Ruby came here to the cemetery religiously to work these plots, these family plots. She would work the flower beds and trim the hedge. And she'd do anything that would have to be done. What a sad day here at the Hopewell Cemetery in 1994. Well, may Lee and Ruby rest in peace forever, along with the family that have passed here, the Parkers and the Bottoms. Rest in peace, all.